主要是那个你要离得稍微近。
你说这个，然后
大不小的，
反正之前都是会两
要不然把这个放在中间，这反正就
不用移，要不就把它这样转过来。
这个叫尊，是尊敬的尊，是一种酒器。这个呢，应该是三星堆。
This is called a zun. It's a kind of bronze wine cup. It must be the largest in size ever discovered here in Sanxingdui. We also have the two types of squared zun. And the squared-shaped bronze are also very rare. This is the first of its kind here in Sanxingdui. And this looks like a bronze altar. This is a very new shape that we have ever discovered here in Sanxingdui Ruins. And this is a statue in bronze, and we have discovered a dozen of them. This is a statue in bronze carrying on its head a bronze zun wine cup. This is a jade artifact, one called Cong, and another is the jade dagger axe. And this is the stone part, and a lot of remaining parts here are closely connected to the construction. And for the pit 6, the most important feature is that we have discovered such a wooden box. And for the gold leaves, some of them are in the rectangular form and some others in the circulars. And in the center of each piece, we can find a hole. They have very large mouth and also very long eyes. For the whole scale of this facial task is much bigger than the previously discovered facial masks in Sanxingdui.
欢迎收看新闻频道直播。
Today we have started a new journey to explore the secrets behind the Sanxingdui Ruins. Welcome to our program today. Back to 1986, we have started the first round of big excavation works in the Sanxingdui Ruins, and many artifacts have been discovered from Pit 1 and 2. For example, the vertical eyes facial masks, and also the animal statues, and also with the golden artifacts. And after so many decades, we have newly discovered 6 pits, and they are under excavation now. For example, yesterday we have already unveiled several pits. For example, for the Pit 3, it has not failed our expectation. For example, we have discovered this very huge zun in bronze, and also another zun carried by a statue. We are not yet very sure about the position of that statue, whether standing or it's kneeling down. And from all those artifacts, you can see that how enriched is that pit number 3. And also for the other pits, for example, for the number 4, we have excavated one Cong jade artifact, and also many elephant tusks from the pit number 4. And we are about to unearth more elephant tusks from the pit 4. And from the pit number 5, we have discovered a lot of artifacts in gold. For example, this very big scale of the facial masks in gold. And these glitters of the gold can make us wonder how our ancestors have decided to put so much gold together in this pit. And the pit 6 has left all of us with a very big suspense with the existence of such a wooden box. It's never seen before with the pit 1 and 2, so what's inside exactly? Our viewers on the website, they have made a lot of propositions, and some of them also making a guess. Maybe we can find some money from our ancestors left inside in the Sanxingdui, so we should have a little bit more patience and wait and see what's inside. And in another pit, we have also noticed some overlapping of the artifacts, and we may wonder if there is a big gap in the years between the pit 7 and the next pit. Currently, we are still excavating the pit 7, and what about the pit 8? We have discovered inside the burnt soil and some other stones connected with the construction of the buildings. And from this pit, we can notice that this has a very close distance from the previously discovered pit 2. And inside, we have also discovered plenty of the artifacts, and that means we can still have a lot of things to expect from the pit 8. Until now, we have unearthed more than 500 artifacts, and now we are about to have a connection with our journalist Zhao Jing from CCTV on the site. Good afternoon, Madam Zhao Jing. Could you please tell us more updates about current excavation? Yes, Chunye. We are now inside the shed of excavation for Sanxingdui Ruins. Inside this cabin of excavation, we can see that our workers are busy with the excavation work. And now we are progressing very well with all the pits. For example, the 3, 4, 5, 6, we have already discovered artifacts. And for the pit 7 and 8, we are studying the earth filled inside. We have only limited surface of operation, but still for the pit 5, we have successfully unearthed a lot of gold leaves. Currently, we are doing the cleaning work, and also inside this pit 5, we have discovered some ivory objects. In the day before, we have already unearthed some remainings of this gold facial mask, and currently we have moved the mask to the center for the objects conservation in order to do the restoration of this facial mask. And we have also discovered another jade artifact, which is called Cong in the Chinese language. This is a very important sacrificial item. And according to our preliminary studies, we found some traces of the burning And whether it's coated by other patterns or there are other materials attached to its surface, we shall still wait and see, and we need to run more tests. Compared to the artifacts from Pit 1 and 2, dating back to the 1986 discoveries, we can find some similarities between the previous pits and today's pits. We can always find the first layer of the elephant tusks, and today we are doing the consolidation work and also the restoration work. And today we are also about to take one elephant tusk from the pit number 4. And for other pits, we have unearthed a huge number of the bronzes. Some have very beautiful patterns, and some others have a very cute and bizarre shape. And at the same time, from the pit 3, we have also unearthed some branch parts from the sacred tree. And also we have unearthed, this time from the pit 3, one of the largest size of the bronze, and we have used silicone to protect this very huge size of the bronze wine cup. And also from the pit 3, we can get it out of the pit. For the latest updates, please stay tuned to our program and we will give you more information later. Thank you very much, Madam Zhao. And now we're about to be connected with our colleagues Zhu Guangquan from CCTV. And this time with him, we have the working team members there and also one of the team members during the excavation of 1986. Now the time is yours. Good afternoon, dear viewers. I'm now by the side of the Sanxingdui Ruins. I'm only 50 meters away from that site of excavation. I'm inside that archaeological park. And with a great pleasure and also the honor, we have invited the captain of the excavation team for the pit 1 and 2, and also a member from the current working team, and also the captain for the excavation work from the pit 4, and it's very young. And sir, 35 years ago, you participated in the first round of excavation, and Mr. Xu, this time you are in charge for the excavation at pit 4. So two of you are the symbols of this hard work at the excavation site, and you are also doing a relay of the work. Yes, after celebrating the 70th anniversary of the People's Republic of China, several generations of archaeologists have been working very hard to discover the secrets behind the Sanxingdui Ruins. And dating back to the 1960s, many experts have already started their discoveries, and they are the first generation of the archaeologists for the discovery of Sanxingdui, and I belong to the second generation of the excavations. And currently we can see that more young people are joining our team. For example, the third generation come from the 1980s and born in the 1980s and 90s. So in my childhood, I read from my textbook about Sanxingdui, and I have never expected that one day I could be one of them to discover the secrets of the Sanxingdui Ruins. And today I come back to the site that our predecessors have worked, and it's such a great opportunity for us. So what is the similarity between the work of today and that 35 years ago? 35 years ago, at this site where we are doing the broadcasting, it's the site of the excavation for pit 1 and pit 2. We have discovered artifacts dating back to 4,000 years ago. By then, we had quite limited resources to do the excavation work. For example, we bought some bamboo pieces from the farmers in the locality, and also we bought some straws of the paddy rice or the straws of the wheat in order to set up this shed of excavation work. And this is also considered a site of our temporary dormitory. We have a very simplified version of the shed. For example, we have the two photos to show us the different working scenarios, one from 1986 and another from today. And you can see that back to the 1986 from this photo, we are unearthing this statue, this portrait in bronze. And today is quite different. We have the excavation shed in which we can find some smaller units, which are the cabins of excavation. So today you have much better conditions for work. So Mr. Chen, he has talked so much about the old days conditions for the excavation. Today we have much better working conditions, and also we have the innovative technologies to protect the pits, as well as the cabins to maintain the stability of the temperature and humidity. And in 1986, it's more like a rescue plan to excavate all those objects. And today we can do much more to have a prediction on the artifacts coming out from those pits, thanks to the advanced technologies. However, I believe that the spirit for the excavation for the archaeologist hard work is carried from one generation to another, so that ambition held by our archaeologists remain unchanged. So today we have the advancement of the technologies, but still we remain true to our original missions. Today, this year, we celebrate 100th anniversary of the foundation of China's archaeological work. And now we're about to bring you inside those cabins.
All right, first of all, we are entering into the excavation shelter for Sanxingdui. And actually, we have 4 cabins inside of the excavation site. And actually, we're doing the excavation from number 3 to number 8 pit. So right now, with our cable camera, we are entering into pit 4. It's just like we are going through all the mysteries and uncover all of those unknown mysteries. Alright, we have come to pit 4. Yesterday, there are a lot of protective layers, so we are not able to see the big picture of the pit number 4. And so today we will adding more hydration towers and the hydration paper. And right now we are able to uncover this protective layer. By taking this opportunity, we have a closer look to the elephant tusks. Right, I have a question for Mrs. Xu. Why we need to change this hydrating tower and the paper? How many times you change all of these towers? So right now you could see it's quite dark inside of the ivory. It is actually being covered by the layer of ashes. We have to balance the humidity and the temperature, so that we have to put some of the hydration towel on top of those ivories. However, if we put these hydration papers for these places for a long time, probably it will generate some of the bacteria. This will not be conducive to preserve all of those elephant tusks. So every 4 days, we will change those hydration towels and papers. And actually today is the 4th day, we need to do the replacement. It's meaning that we have to just like change a face mask for the ivory. That's correct. It's quite dark, right? This is because the layer of ashes is putting on top of those elephant tusks, and most of the tusks have been burnt before it is entering into the pit. So that's why we see some of the dark color and black color of the ivory, and some of the ivories will actually soak it with the layer of the ashes. So right now there are a number of archaeologists standing right next to the elephant tusks. I believe maybe there are other buried objects beneath the tusks. So what is the progress right now? Actually, we started to find out the pit number 4 on January the 17th, 2019, and by January the 14th, we have completed the digging of the earth, and also we clean the dust and the layer of ashes. And start from January the 15th, we are starting to lift all of those objects. So how many treasures buried inside of this pit? Right now we have 37 elephant tusks inside of the pit. So during the excavation, we may have to scan some of these objects to get some information. So let's take a look. So for this one, actually we are cleaning some of the ashes and the earth. So what about this one? Now you could see we have divided this area for different sections for the excavation, and also it's part of our excavation work. It's just like we're doing the decoration. And if you look at this picture, you already see the layer of the ashes. So we have cleaned out some of the layer of the ashes. We are able to see some of the burial objects. So that is actually the whole storyline for the excavation for Pit 4. And this one is very clear. You could see all of those elephant tusks. It feels like the pit is full of elephant tusks. So right now we're about to lift this elephant tusk on the ground. We will pay attention to the lifting procedures. So now you could see all of those elephant tusks were burnt. So we look at Pit 1, Pit 2, and yesterday when we see Pit 8, we also see all of those objects have been burned or being smashed. Why is that? I think this is because for the purpose of sacrificial activities, the ancient people, they worshiping God and heaven. They want to sacrifice all of these offerings to God. Back in ancient times, in Central Plain and other places, we're using the same method. So we will bring all of those buried objects into the fire and burn all of those objects for sacrificial purposes. So if we have a fierce fire, and then all of these offerings will be burnt, and they are able to be brought to the heaven. Also, we have to smash or damage all of those objects. So by doing that, they could offer these sacrifices to the god. So if we look at the time period and dynasties of Pit 1 and Pit 2, but still there are a lot of speculations about the time period for the discovery of 1 and 2. So maybe in the future when we come up with new discoveries, maybe we will have some of the new conclusions. Of course, we are looking forward to the latest progress. Maybe you can give us more introduction about the stacking of Pit 1, Pit 2. So any difference as compared to the stacking with Pit 3 and 4? If we look at Pit 3 and 4, I think the stacking is the same. So now I would like to show you a photo to see how these objects are being stacked in Pit number 2. So I think the elephant tusk is on the top, and then below it we may have some objects. And the second layer there was some bronze ware. And in the end, we will cover all of those buried objects with the elephant tusk. So the most underneath layers is filled with some of the objects or some of the small size artifacts or some of the decorative pieces, jade pieces. So any pattern that we could follow for the stacking from Pit number 3 and 8. So in Pit 3 and Pit 4, actually on top of each pit is covered with the ivories, and also below it is the bronze ware, and below the bronze ware, I think, according to our knowledge, there may be some small pieces of jade or potteries. So we may also look at the stacking method and the direction of the stacking for this kind of pieces. I think they're following the same kind of pattern from Shu people. So for the laying out of these objects, actually is exactly the same. So what about this one? I believe this is a jade disc. So on the surface, it's quite smooth. So I think this is a kind of jade disc with edge. And also, you could see there's a hole inside of these jade disc. At the beginning, the color is white, but right now the color is turning brown. This is because it was dyed by some of the elephant tusks and a layer of ashes. So if you look at this disc, do you think it is an intact one or a broken pieces? I believe this is a broken pieces. So on the other side, actually it was covered by the elephant tusk. So we have the confidence to restore such piece. So actually back in old days when we were doing the excavation work, we also able to excavate similar type of the jade disc. But this one you could see in a very good condition, and also we're able to find the jade chisel. For this jade chisel is also representative back in the ancient Shu kingdom. People use it as a tool, and if you make the chisel as a jade chisel, and probably it would be used as a ritual object. So actually the jade beast is also a kind of ritual object. So here we could see different kinds of jade pieces, the tong and disc. And actually for jade wares, there are 6 typical type of jade ware in ancient China. So we have bi, we have huan, also we have the jade tablet, and also the tiger-shaped jade ornaments. So we could use all of these kind of jade ware for sacrificial purposes. So right now we are seeing a bronze ware. So what is this? I'm not sure I could see it clearly. And this one is quite special. Right at the beginning, when we excavated this item, we could see some of the tails of the bird or the claws of the bird. We thought this is a bronze bird. So with our excavation work moving along, we found this is not the claws of the bird. Instead, it is like a human feet. Yes, it feels like the hands of a human body, and actually they're putting their hands together, and also we could see the fingernails. So we are not sure what this is, because we could see if we look at the body and the feet, well, actually it's quite different. It's maybe a bird or a human body. So we have to uncover all of those elephant tusks in order to get a bigger picture of this kind of objects. So what do you think, Mr. Chen? If you look at the shape of this item, it feels like a human body in general. So in pit 1 and pit 2, we do see some of the objects with the combination of the birds and also the human shape, and also we are able to find a human figure with a vase on his head. So this one probably a combination piece with bird and human. So it is quite sacred. But I think this one is also closely linked to their religions. So maybe they're also putting some of the god spirit inside of this statue. So even though this one is quite special and quite peculiar, but it's quite sacred in nature. But of course, we need to do more studies to better understand this piece. So we can't wait to see the whole piece coming out from Earth. So what about this one? This is another bronze ware, very long. I think this is another part of another set of the bronze ware. So if you look at the patterns, it's very similar to the bronze bird. Maybe it is part of the bronze bird. So however, for these two pieces, they have a distance of about like 40 to 50 centimeters. If we look at the shape, we think maybe these two pieces belong to one object. Maybe it is one piece or maybe it is two pieces. We are not sure. We need to do more work on the excavation. And also we could see this rocker arm to have a closer look of the pit. So by having this technology, we could better understand what are the objects inside of the pit. So for this one, I think maybe it's in a diamond shape, but I can clearly see the pattern on this bronze ware.
And now we're also looking at the elephant's tusks. Is that a piece of ceramics? Yes, I think it comes from a very long bottle. It's been smashed and also burned. And now you can even notice some cracks on the surface of this piece. And it's by the side of the ivory. Though here we have only a piece of ceramics, you may think it's not as expensive as those jade or as the other bronze, but this is a very important piece of proof that can help us with the dating. Because the ceramics, they are very fragile, and once it's broken, we have to make a new one to replace it. And every time when we make a new piece to replace the previous one, there will be a mark left by the craftsmen and also the traces of the time. So today we consider those ceramics as very important proofs to help us with the dating. And with here a small piece of ceramics, it will help us out with the dating of the whole pit. For the ceramics, I'd like to give you extra footage because yesterday we didn't touch upon that too much. And for the color of the ceramics, we call it an orange-like color. For example, a little bit red in orange, but on the surface of it, there's also the black color. It may come from the burned wood or from the trash layer, and also some glitters of the gold. So here we can say that inside the material making the ceramics, we have added some sands inside, and also some materials like the powders of the clams, of the shells, and also some natural stone powders. So when we add all this mixture of ingredients inside, it can make it more resistant to the external forces. So from pit 1 and pit 2, we have also discovered similar objects. Our ancestors are really smart. In order to develop some daily utensils that can help us to carry all those objects, and also at the same time we need these objects to be really easy in the making process. Then we have the ceramics, and those are the symbols of the wisdom of our ancestors. For example, we have also discovered a lot of sharp-bottomed jars and also the wine cups. For example, the bottle in ceramics to hold the wine. We also have some other cooking pots with 3 feet. On the body of that cooking pot, we can also notice a very big mark. And also there is a wide edge around the mouth of that pot. So on that edge, you can put some vegetable. That is like today's utensil for the hot pot. In the past, with the discovery of the previous artifacts of the sharp bottom, people have wondered why we have such a shape and how we can use it. And gradually, we can give you all the answers to these discoveries. Stay tuned. And now we are back to the studio in Beijing from Guanghan in Sichuan Province. Today we have invited Mr. Shi Jianxin, a great expert for the Shang Dynasty and Zhou Dynasty, and also for the archaeological studies for the Sanxingdui artifacts. So, which parts of the discoveries of this time impress you most? We have nearly discovered the 6 pits this time, and I'd like to know what are similarities and differences between the 2 generations of pits, and what kind of new challenges are still waiting for us ahead. And with this time's new discoveries, what kinds of problems can be solved, what questions can be answered, and what are the new challenges are waiting for us. For example, we have in the past explained quite a lot for the techniques of the objects making, and also explanations for the old days exchanges of culture, techniques, sciences, etc. And in the past, we referred to these pits as the sacrificial pits, but this is just one side of the reading. For example, to whom we have designated those sacrificial pits, and why we have smashed and even burned these objects. So many secrets to be revealed in the future. And maybe this time's discovery can give us some more extra help. And for the 1986 discovery, the most important discovery is that we have helped to restore that image of the Shang dynasty. And what is the role played by Sanxingdui Ruins? Sanxingdui culture is a quite special culture. We can say that the power of the king and the power of the god coexisted together. And we also have the worship of the sky. For the higher rank of officials, the aristocrats, they grabbed all the resources, and also they managed and supervised the craftsman industry and many other sectors of the life. And the bronzes and other artifacts discovered in this pits, they are the symbols of their social status. And Sanxingdui culture is a very special and a representative regional culture in the upstream and midstream of the Yangtze River basin. And the Sanxingdui culture has further enriched the civilization of the Chinese people, and it's also a quite unique culture in the whole world. People are all talking about this culture, and it has become one of the hot topics of yesterday's web discussion. And people are also correlating the Sanxingdui culture with the alien culture. So why is that? First of all, I believe that it's not a kind of alien culture, but people may have some kind of presumption. People used to believe that the ancient culture should be monotone, and also they must be following a certain pattern. But today, we can see that there are a lot of unknown mysteries behind those ancient civilizations. For something that is unknown to us, we cannot just interpret that into an alien culture. We sincerely hope that sciences and also the archaeological studies could give us an answer to these questions. But still, we have to admit that for our sector, for our circles of studies, the road is still very long for us to continue our work. And that's why we can still be amazed by all those surprises today. And what is your explanation about the Sanxingdui culture if it is not an alien culture? Based on the previous Neolithic culture, and also it has absorbed the local culture from the Sichuan region and also the central China region, with multiple elements of the culture combined together. And until the Qing and the Han dynasty, during this long period of time, it's a mixture of all those cultural contexts and elements. Just now from the pit 4, we have noticed some pieces of the ceramics. It's a very common object and material. However, we should never ignore the importance of the ceramics because, as is mentioned by our experts, usually we will not use the ceramics in ancient times as a treasure of the family and pass that on from generation to another generation. Once it's smashed, we will just make a new one, and we can then find a lot of marks of the craftsmen on the surface of the ceramics, and nowadays we can use those marks left by the makers of those ceramics as the proof of the dating. For example, this is ceramics with the 3 feet. This is for the cooking. You can see 3 fat feet to hold and support the whole disc, and for the disc it has a very wide edge. On the edge you can put some vegetables and also some meat, and then you can just boil the meat and food inside the ceramics center. And also within the 3 legs you can burn some fire, so it looks like today's hot pot. And maybe you can refer to it as the previous early version of the hot pot in Sichuan region. This is another piece of ceramics. It's very long in the body, and on the top of it there's a very shallow disc, and people can read it as a disc for the food containing, but we cannot understand why the leg or the main body of this object is so high and is so tall. But one guess is that in the past, in ancient times, people didn't have any table, and when we are sitting on the ground and having the food, we will just use a very tall disc to hold the food for us. In Sanxingdui Ruins, we have discovered and unearthed a huge number of different shapes of the wine cups, and sometimes with multiple legs supporting them, and they can even resist high temperature like that. They can be heated with the fire. So now we have the hot pot and also the wine cups. You can use all those proofs and evidence to imagine how life was beautiful even for our ancestors, because they can have a drink and delicious food with their friends. For pit 4, for Sanxingdui Ruins, the discovery have been preliminary started dating back to last year in October. We have also discovered some remainings of the carbons. Where are they from? After cleaning away the first layer of the soil, by the end of the pit, we have discovered a lot of black carbon particles. So this layer of carbon may be poured from the southeastern part, and with a thickness of 50 centimeters. The thinnest part has only a thickness of 10 centimeters. And on the inner wall, there's no traces of the burning. Just with one corner of the pit, we have noticed a higher content of the carbon, especially to the point of the southeastern direction. So maybe we have burned and smashed all those objects outside the pit, and then we had poured those ashes of burning inside one corner of the pit. We can imagine that not far away from this side of the pit, people have organize a ceremony of the sacrifices to the gods and skies. They have burned the clothes and also other objects, and finally they have poured all the treasures inside. Apart from the discovery of the carbon particles, under that layer of the ash, we have also discovered some blackened elephant tusks, whether they are burned during the ancient ceremonies of sacrifices. While cleaning away those carbon particles from the pit 4, we have revealed those elephant tusks. Until now, we have counted more than 30 whole pieces of it, but some of the whole pieces have been broken down into separate parts. With bare eyes, we can see that the surface is blackened, so they must be burnt. Whether those elephant tusks are burned outside of the pit during the ceremony and later poured into the pit, our workers have another guess. We are not sure where this black color comes from. Is it from the burning or just from the invasion of the layer of the carbon particles? We still have to run further studies in order to make the final decision. And during yesterday's work, we have noticed that we have protected one piece of the elephant tusk before lifting it out of the pit. So in the following parts of the program, we can have some more understanding of it.
Thank you for your introduction. And right now I'm at the studio of the excavation site of Sanxingdui. With me also I have the leader from the excavation team and also Xu Danyang from a member of the excavation team. And just now we have seen the big picture of the pit 4. We see different kinds of relics, for example, the gold ware, the bronze, jade ware, etc. So what is the most impressive one, do you think? I think the bronze ware is very important for us because if you look at the shape, we're not sure whether it is a human body or just like a bronze bird. I think this one may carry special significance. We are quite looking forward to see what will be coming out from the pit 4. What is your favorite one, Mr. Chen? There are many objects will be unearthed from the pits. I'm actually interested in all of them. But we are just looking at if we look at the surface of all of those objects, we know there may be some jade, some bronze, but also we have to pay attention to the ceramics. And we will use the ceramics to identify the period of time and the period of the dynasties. And also for the potteries, actually you could see it buried with the sacrificial vessels. So we may also wondering what are inside of those potteries and ceramics. Will we put some food inside of those potteries? Or will we put some of the sacrificial offerings inside of the pottery? We are not sure. And right now, through the VR technology, we could actually restore the dwelling places for the ancient Shu people just right here. And actually, back in 1986, the archaeologists, they are doing the excavation here. And also on this land, we are actually building the houses on this land. And actually, I could open the door to see what's inside the house. So from the home studio, we just talked about we have this high stand plate and also the so-called hot pot. So maybe it is not a hot pot, but it is a cooking vessel with 3 legs. And actually, you could see the large vases and also the cooking vessels inside of the house. This is actually a simulated scenario, but we could depend on our imagination to see what it looks like in the ancient people's house. So when you look at these scenarios, how do you feel, Mr. Chen? Do you think it's realistic? Well, actually, based on all of those relics unearthed from the excavation site, we're able to restore some of the dwelling places. This is the only information we have. We see some of the jars. We will use them to store the food, the grains, and also we have the wine vessels. Actually, in the northeast, people would like to use this kind of wine vessel to contain the wine. So I believe the winemaking technology is very advanced back in the ancient times. And also we believe the agricultural development is very good because without the crops you're not able to make wine. So now we are going back to the excavation site to see what is the progress for the excavation at pit 4. Now we are seeing the shelter, the cabin for the excavation site at pit 4, and many archaeologists are preparing to lift the elephant tusk. For the lifting of the elephant tusk, we have to adding in the plaster, and after it is being dry, and then we are able to lift the elephant tusk. So right now we are lifting the tusk. Yesterday we have actually filling in the model with the plaster. So now you could see it's fully wrapped. So what material we are using to wrap this kind of elephant tusk? We are using the plastic cloth. For the elephant tusk from the outside, from the appearance, it seems in good condition. However, inside of the tusk, maybe it was being rammed or being burnt, and it has been buried for a really long time. So probably it is very fragile. So we have to be very careful to lift the tusk. And after we lift the tusk, we need to send these relics to the laboratory. We need to use some of the cutting-edge technology, trying to absorb the waters. And also we have to inject some other kind of protective liquid to protect the elephant tusk, to make sure that the humidity level is up to the standard. So actually it is quite heavy, tens of kilograms of the elephant tusk, so that's why we need 2 people to carry it. So as these tusks have been buried for a really long time, so maybe it will be heavier than before, because the humidity level is improved, and also maybe some of the earth has been soaked inside of the tusk. That's why the tusk is getting heavier. I believe the length of the tusk is over 1 meter. Even the shortest one have the 1 meter. For some of the long elephant tusk, they may reach the length of 2 meters. So in general, on average, it's about 1 to 2 meters. So this is the general shape of the elephant tusk. So maybe they have a kind of standard to put the elephant tusk inside of the pits. So I believe all of these elephants are grown up. Maybe this is one of the standard. So right now we are putting the elephant tusk inside of the lifting machine. So we have already used this kind of lifting platform to do the excavation work. So for our archaeologists, they actually lying on this platform to do the excavation. So for each time, we are able to carry one of the elephant tusks back onto the ground. It is very tough, so we have to be very careful to move with this elephant tusk. Actually, I'm getting a little bit nervous because you could see the platform is not that stable. Alright, we could see our working staff is trying to move the elephant tusk. And this part is very difficult. It requires physical strength. What is the weight? Because earlier we have putting some of the plaster inside of the model, so altogether it's about 50 kilogram, at least 50 kilogram. Once again, they have to fix this elephant tusk to a plate. And now we have to transport this ivory to other places for further preservation. Why shall we send all of those ivories to the laboratory? This time you could see we have unearthed a large number of elephant tusks, and they're quite organic. We have to preserve all of those elephant tusks. So right now the on-site laboratory do not have the necessary condition to preserve this elephant tusk. We are going to send this tusk to the Archaeological Preservation Center. So first we have to register the information about these tusks. This is actually a standard procedure for each one of the relics unearthed. We have to number those relics and register the information, and then we will send this to the archaeological museum, and later on there's another type of registration. It feels like they're calculating. So actually we are using a scanning machine to number and label all of these relics. So just like we are putting a QR code on each one of those relics. So this is actually a handover ceremony, and each one of the staff have to sign their names. For each one of the relics, they have their distinctive QR code. And if you scan the QR code, you have all the information you need about this relic. Alright, we see the pit, inside of the pit. So maybe below the layer of the ivory, you may find other objects. But this is just one of the elephant tusks. We have tens of elephant tusks to be lifted. Hopefully after we lift all of these elephant tusks, we're able to see more bronze wares. Right now they're tidying up these elephant tusks, but it's okay because earlier we have already filled and fixed all of these elephant tusks with platter. I think it's also quite challenging to bring all of those elephant tusks onto a truck. Maybe we have a special container to store all of these kind of elephant tusks. So we have to stabilize all of those tusks. We have a special vehicle with several layers to carry these relics. As you can see, it's very heavy. Alright, the first elephant tusk is able to be moved out from the cabin. All good. And naturally there were several stairs inside of the shelter. We still need to be careful. And the vehicle is ready to receive the elephant tusk. They have to be careful going down from the stairs. So back in 1986, what's the situation back then? We don't have this kind of conditions. So at that time, we just roughly clean the elephant tusk. And we have to do everything with manpower. We have the plaster, but we don't have other equipments. So because at that time, we're doing a rescue type of archaeology. we need to act fast and to bring the intact piece back to the laboratory. So that's why we phrase it as a rescue type of archaeological excavation. And this time, we are quite proactive in the excavation work. Because in the past, back in 1980s, so we have people who are cleaning the soil standing right next to us. So after we clean the ivories, they will take the ivories away immediately. So it is quite urgent. At that time, we have to work like 24 hours per day. Especially in summer, the situation is very tough. We just have a bamboo shelter. We are installing some lights, and then we are doing the excavation work. So this is pit number 4. Please join us for a tour in pit 5 to see what happens there. So what are they doing? I think they're trying to clean the ivory carving.
So are they also using a hydration tissue? So what they are holding is a tool made of bamboo. And very carefully they are putting another layer of the hydration tissue on top of it, and by the side of it we can see the glitter of the gold leaf. Inside this pit we have discovered a lot of gold ware and also ivory sculptures as well as the other ceramics. For the big picture of the pit 5, we can notice that the majority of the surface is covered by the protective films, and only that part needed for further excavation is exposed. And until now, we cannot see very clearly what is on the surface of the ivory sculpture. Have we ever discovered similar sculptures in ivory from pit 1 or 2? Only some shattered parts, some remaining. It's not in a very whole body, in a whole unit. So maybe in the future we can expect to see the resembling of all the separate parts. So this is also a very challenging job. Just now with the telephone test from pit number 4, it's very heavy, it's very challenging, and here it's quite to the opposite, extremely tiny, and we also have to be really careful when lifting it up. And what about that pattern? It's called the pattern of Yunlei, typical from the Shang dynasty and Zhou dynasty, usually on the surface of the bronze. And people working there have to pay extra attention to that. For example, we have to first of all apply a layer of the hydration tissue so that now we can lift this part out, and it's already big enough for the ivory sculpture, because in the past we only discovered those smaller pieces with 1 centimeter or 2 centimeters. With all the pieces of the ivory put together, we can expect to see a bigger sculpture in its complete form. So still the path is quite long for the future studies. And again, we have to take the photos and also put a card inside to know the exact measure of that, and also the QR code. So the whole process is the same to the previous one with the elephant tusk. And we also have the similar tools in the excavation and lifting of the ivory sculptures as those used by the dentists. So it's always the tools about the teeth, whether for a dentist or for our archaeologists working at site. Again, the photos are taken and we have to put everything in the record. In the past, we also have to make up the drawing at site, because by then we didn't have any QR code nor the cameras. So in order to take a record of everything, we have to draw by hand. And we also have to take the notes, where are these objects discovered and how they look like. In the past, with only the possible tool of the drawing, we can also record everything. And today we have the 3D modeling and also the QR code. We know where it's located and where is this object discovered. So after visiting our neighboring pits number 5, we come back to the pit 4 again. Our operation floor is back again. It's hanging above our pit 4. Again, we are treating another piece of the elephant tusk. After lifting the previous one out of the pit, we are now proceeding with another piece. Again, we have to use the hydration, towels and tissues on the surface of those ivory of this elephant tusks, because they cannot be exposed to the fresh air like that for a much longer time. They will all suffer from the dehydration. For those towels or the hydration tissues, they have been disinfected in advance. And later, after preparing all this layer of the tissues for hydration, we will add up another layer of the plastic films. So before the lifting work, we only need those 2 layers, one layer of the hydration tissue, another layer of the plastic films. Every few days, for example, every 4 to 5 days, we have to repeat this whole process of the facial masks for our elephant tusks for the hydration. So every 4 to 5 days, we have to hydrate all those 36 elephant tusks inside the pit. But 36 plus that one already lifted out of the pit is currently the number we are sure of about the elephant tusk. Maybe there are some extra trunks buried beneath. And people have to stay on the site. And this is also one of the progress that we have achieved with the field-based archaeological excavations. And all those technologies are also supporting our work. Just now we have also noticed the whole process of lifting that ivory sculpture out of the pit, and we are moving that object to a laboratory for the further processing and cleaning work. Now I'd like to give the floor to my colleague. Yes, just now a very tiny piece of the ivory sculpture has been moved to the Center for the Protection of those Organic Materials. After being lifted out of the pit, immediately these artifacts will be transported to this laboratory. We are using the microscope to run a very close distance of observation about them. On the surface of it, we can see a lot of diamond-shaped patterns, and also attached to the surface some other objects and materials. After the arrival in this laboratory, the first step is the observation under microscope, and later we have to use the steam water to clean away the materials or the soil attached to the surface of the tiny objects. For the softer materials, we can use the brush, and for the more solid ones, we have to use some bamboo tools or the small knife made especially for this kind of purpose. And among the diamond-shaped patterns, some insertion of the soil. So we have to be really careful about the cleaning work in order not to damage any part of it. While doing this cleaning work and observation work about this tiny object, we also have some other concerns. For example, we have to keep the cleaned object into a special package and then transport it further to another center of the studies. For example, here we can see a protective box. What is the material of this box? It's the box for the hydration. After being unearthed and lifted out of the pit, we have to pay attention to the hydration conditions in order to make sure that they will not be hydrated. We have selected a special material to protect the bottom of it, and we will add another layer of material for the hydration of the object. For ivory, hydration is quite important. And also during our work of the artifacts protection, we have applied a lot of new technologies and materials. After this stage of treatment, they will be further transported to another center. So that is for this part of the laboratory. Back to you, Guangchen. Thank you. Later on, we will stay tuned to our excavation work. We can expect to see another important unearthed artifact later. Welcome back to the Beijing studio. Just now we have observed the whole process of lifting one big piece of the elephant tusk out of the pit, and not only with Guanghan, also with the site of Jinsha, we have once unearthed hundreds of elephant tusks. And how was that, and how did people protect those elephant tusks? We're about to talk to Jiang Ling. Could you please talk about the status of the elephant tusks from Jinsha site? Yes. I'm now in the museum of the Jinsha. It's also the laboratory of the artifacts protection. We have invited Madam Sun Jie, the Deputy DG, here. I have a question for you, Madam Sun. You have participated in the excavation of those elephant tusks in Jinsha site. How many have you discovered? We have calculated it's more than 100. With the preliminary studies, all those elephant tusks belong to the Asian elephants, and they are very fragile because they are not as solid as those fresh young elephant tusks, nor as those fossil of elephant tusks. So they still remain in this very fragile status. After being unearthed, those elephant tusks have not received a very mature protection. So we have used an original method for their protection. We are mimicking a similar environment, and we are waiting for a proper moment for the further repairing and restoration of the elephant tusks. This time for the Sanxingdui discovery, we have also discovered another batch of ivory. It's at the same time a very big surprise for our viewers and also a big challenge for our workers, because currently they are at the most fragile process. We have used the silicone rubber to protect those ivories 20 years ago, and today's newly discovered elephant tusks, they are darker in color. What is the reason for that change of color? Currently, we are still waiting for the next stage of studies. According to our preliminary observation, there were several explanations for that changes of colors. First of all, for the content of water inside the elephant tusks, and also for the soaking of the other materials from the soil inside the body of the elephant tusks. And also there must be some microbials inside the rubber, so they may also influence the color of the elephant's tusk. This year marks the 20th anniversary of the discovery of the jinsha elephant tusk. So we are racing against the time to better protect our elephant tusks. Here we have the acrylic material for the protection of the elephant tusks, so we can replace the previously used material like the silicone rubbers. And at the same time, we can also win some extra time for the next day's future protection and restoration of them. For this one, if you don't give me the answer, then I will just guess it's like the tree trunk, but it's actually part of the elephant tusk. Now we can see some circles on the cross-section of the elephant tusk. And within that, also some extra layers, very refined layers. And many materials inside are lost over 3,000 years. And then we can see the cracks inside, and finally they will be broken down and they will suffer from the weathering, and finally they will be turned into the powder. And after the processing and protection measures, some of those objects, for example this trunk, can meet the air.
And actually, some of the ivories may be affected by the construction site. And the archaeologists just told us that in the past, there may be some pieces of the elephant tusk we are not able to preserve them. And within 1 week, actually those tusks turn into powders and ashes. So actually, when we unearth the elephant tusk, actually it is a countdown. We have to seize every minute and second to preserve the elephant tusk. So in this classroom, we have certain pieces of the elephant tusk. So on the front part, you could see we are well preserved it. However, we expose the other part of the tusk. So after we seal this tusk with the silicone gel, we need to do the dehydration and to protect the elephant tusk. So the ultimate purpose is to separate the elephant tusk from the silicone gel model. So this is actually a sample. So now you could see we are also monitoring the preservation effect of the elephant tusk. Thank you for your introduction. So in the jinsha site relic, and we could see we have done a lot of work for the preservation of the elephant tusk, and also we have learned some lessons for the preservation of the tusk. So this also shows that we have advanced technology, and also we have learned the lessons from our predecessors, even though the elephant tusk has experienced a long time of history, so that we can save time and space. All right, back to you, Chunyan. Thank you for your introduction of the preservation of the elephant tusk. So this is our special program to uncover the mystery of Sanxingdui site. And right now in pit number 3, we are able to lift the bronze zun, the bronze vessel. And earlier we are saying there are a lot of treasures unearthed from pit number 3. So let's go back to the excavation site. Turn over to you, Guangchen. Now we are at the pit number 3. We are able to lift one heavy object. This is the bronze vase or vessel. So now we have made the preparation. All right, now we could see from the basket cage, we are trying to lift the bronze zun out of the pit. I believe we also do a lot of protective layers on these objects. We are also filling in plaster inside of the 3D gel, the 3D cover. So if we look at the white objects, is actually the plaster. So right now we are using a cage to lift the bronze zun. It is very heavy. And actually, in this cage, the rectangular vessel is also filled with earth. So I believe this vessel itself is very tall. It has around 60 to 70 centimeters, and also this vessel is filled with dirt and earth. So I think it is at least 100 kilograms in weight. So it is very heavy for this bronze zun. So Mr. Xu, I believe you participated in the cleaning of the bronze zun. Yes, I did help to clean the vessel, but because I work in pit number 4. But when I'm cleaning the vessel, I feel very proud. It is the first time I see such a large size of the rectangular vessel. So unfortunately today, this bronze zun is covered up. We're not able to see the patterns and the delicate design. It is a very heavy object. Alright, now we are trying to lift this bronzeware. So for such a large size of the bronze piece, where did you send it? Again, we will send it to the Treasure Preservation Center because it takes a long time for us to preserve this piece of relic. So on site, we try to rescue this kind of piece of relics, but we have to send it to the Relic Preservation Center for further preservation. So here we just simply process this vessel. We have to clean up some of the dust and ashes. So how long it takes? We have to be very careful. We have to be patient. When we are cleaning the vessels, we have to better understand what is the situation of the vessel. We need to pay attention to the rust of the bronze and also to see whether it is damaged. All in all, we have to consider a lot of factors for the cleaning. So cleaning is the first step, and later we will have the restoration of this vessel. For this kind of vessel, we have to come up with a special plan. So we need to gather some information. For example, we need to find out some of the defects of this bronzeware, and also we have to decide what kind of materials we need to use to restore this kind of vessel. After we approve the plan, and then we're able to restore this vessel. So lifting is the first step. So what other preservation work we need to have? So I would like to hand it over to Zhao Jing, and maybe she will give us more introduction about the preservation work. Alright, we are standing outside of P number 3, and outside of the cabin, we are looking at the procedure for the lifting of the bronze zun. And actually, we have a leader of the archaeology team, Mr. Li. So right now, we are lifting the bronze zun. So what are we doing right now? Now you could see this bronze zun is actually lifted by the box. Actually, the edge is facing down. So right now, we have to stabilize this wooden box so as not to damage the vessel. So earlier, we said this is actually one of the largest size of the bronzeware. So maybe it is the largest bronzeware found in Sanxingdui site. So what are some of the challenges for the lifting work? As you mentioned, this time it is the largest bronzeware excavated this time. As it's large in size means that it's very heavy. So how to lift such large-sized bronzeware safely out of the pit, and then how to move these bronzeware to the laboratory, and then move to the restoration center. So every process we have to pay attention to. And actually, for the cover of these bronzeware, maybe there are some broken pieces. So we have to make sure that there's no further damage of this bronze zun. So earlier when we are standing at the number 3, we actually see a model of the bronze zun. So what is the function of that model? There are so many challenges in lifting these zun, so we are thinking a lot of methods and solutions. We are using some traditional way, and also we use some high technology to lift the bronzeware. As you mentioned the model, we are using the 3D printing technology. So we have widely used the printing technology to create the model in archaeological excavation. So with the 3D model printing technology, we can build a model with the same size of the bronzeware. And then we are able to make a silicone gel cover which can protect the bronzeware. With your introduction, we could see everything we do is to better preserve the bronzeware, which has over 3,000 years of history. Now you could see the archaeologists is working together with the preservation staff. And please stay tuned, and we'll continue to follow up with the lifting work of this bronzeware. Back to you, Guangchen. Alright, Zhao Jing just gave a brief introduction about the lifting of the bronze zun. So we go back to pit number 3 to see what happens here. Now you could see in pit 3, and yesterday we already seen the overall view of pit 3. Some pieces have been covered, but still we are able to see some of the buried objects inside of the pit. So what is that? After we lift the bronze zun, you could see some of the other buried objects unveiled from the pit. So what is that? I believe it is a jade stone. But we are not sure about the shape of this object. But already we have seen some cracks on this jade stone. And also we see a bronze piece, bronzeware. So yesterday, before we lift the bronze zun, we are not able to see this bronzeware. I believe this one also have patterns. So what is that? It's hard to say, because I could only see part of this bronzeware. But if I look at the shape, I believe it is very large. Once again, we see these strange bronzeware, because it does look peculiar. And many viewers, they are quite interested about this piece. Maybe this time we can have a closer look on this one. So this is the hand, right? I believe this is in the shape of a bronze figure. And this bronze figure is sitting on a platform, maybe sitting on an altar. And actually, he is kneeling down, and also we could see his legs. And also on his thigh, you could see some of the patterns and motifs. And also you could see the clear shape of the toes of his feet. If we look at his arms, just like a pair of wings. But if we look closer, look at his hands, it feels like he's trying to hold on something. So it is quite peculiar. The head is missing. We don't know what it looks like for his head. After we clean these objects, we hope we could find the missing piece. And then we know what exactly it looks like. Then we can tell whether it is a human figure or the figure of God. So with the progress of the excavation work, we're able to see more about the relics, and maybe it will bring us more surprises. We're quite impressed by the artistic will and also the appreciation of work for the ancient people. Alright, back to the Beijing studio. Welcome back. And just now we are seeing the lifting of the bronze zun. Once again, we see the peculiar bronzeware. Very impressive. For the bronzeware unearthed from Sanxingdui site, most of them have been broken down to pieces. And also in Panlongcheng Ruins, also we have the same kinds of the bronzeware. It is one of the important ruin sites. Back in the ancient times, it has over 3,000 unearthed pieces from Shang Dynasty. So I would like to hand over to our reporter Jinju to have a look on the Panlongcheng Museum.
Yes, Chen Yan. Actually, the Panlongcheng ruins can be dating back to more than 3,500 years ago to the Shang Dynasty. Here we have a very well-developed culture of the bronze wares. For the description of these ruins, actually our experts believe that here used to be one site of the camping for our soldiers. And here, 1/3 of the artifacts discovered from the ruins are the bronze wares, and for example, the bronze weapons like the dagger axes, etc. We have also discovered other shapes of the weapons in bronze, like here is the facial mask in bronze. It's a special discovery only in the Panlongcheng ruins, never found elsewhere. And in the old days, the generals and also soldiers, they were wearing this kind of facial mask in bronze to protect their faces. And apart from this, we have discovered something else. For example, this looks like a stack of the mud, and some part of it in green color. Actually, it's where the facial mask in bronze once lied. Something else I'd like to present to you, something looks like the axe. It's called the bronze yue. It's a piece of bronze ware. And when we put it like that and tied it to a pole, it can be turned into a weapon. Gradually, this bronze tong yue, the artifact battle axe, has become an important part of the culture. In the ancient lettering system of the people, the letter king or emperor, the king comes from that shape of this artifact. Within the 6 pits newly discovered with Sanxingdui Ruins, we have discovered many fragments of the bronzes. And it's also true here with Panlongcheng Ruins. Here with the photos showing different sizes and shapes of the bronze wares. For example, this is called ding in Chinese language. It's a very big jar or vessel for containing other objects. And there is also a crack on the belly of this vessel. Actually, dating back to the old days, our ancestors had this kind of customs or habit to smash or break the object before sending these objects into the graves of their owners. And it's also the same rule with these other objects. It's broken by the ancestors. And we have not put them together perfectly in order to let you know where the cracks are and how the ancestors have decided to do this. All those traces could help us to depict the life in the old days for our ancestors, and for the casting of the bronze wares have already reached a very high level dating back to the old dynasties of Shang and Zhou. And here in Panlongcheng site, we have unearthed so many bronze wares, whether they were produced here locally or whether it's been transported from other places. Because here it's like in the middle part of China. So we'd like to know the exact answer to that question. Where were they made? As to the origin of those bronze wares of the Panlongcheng ruins, when we look at their shapes and forms and motifs, patterns, and also their casting technologies, they were quite similar to those from the central part of China. Scholars have already carried out many studies. We have been continuing with another site of excavation near Panlongcheng. We have discovered a lot of tools in bronze. At the same time, we have also discovered the operating platforms made of the stones and also some other models in bronze and stones. We have also applied our high technology to discover a high content of bronze at the Xiaozui site near Panlongcheng Ruins. And the level of this content of bronze is 10 times higher than the other nearby sites. This may be a proof to show us that people have already acquired the technology here to cast the bronze wares. And that casting technology by that time is already a highly advanced technology. So with the multiple researchers by our experts, this is the only big cluster of cities here in Panlongcheng is a representative of the culture of the midstream of the Yangtze River and also of the mid part of China. It's a very bright star in the whole story of the Chinese people. The bronze wares from Sanxingdui Ruins are as beautiful as those from the Yingshu. So now we're about to bring you to the Anyang city of Henan Province. After years of excavation and studies, we have discovered the largest site for the casting of the bronze wares by the late Shang dynasty. We have our journalist on site, please, Mr. Wang Tao. Okay, Chen Yan. Before talking about the Xingdian ruins, I'd like to show you a footage. Until now, this Xingdian sites are still under excavation. After the foundation of People's Republic of China started by 1950, we have been excavating this site in a non-stopping manner. And in 2016, we have officially started the excavation of this particular site where I'm standing. And half of the artifacts area are for the bronze casting. It's the biggest site ever discovered for the casting of the bronze. And we could see that in old days, this is considered as a heavy industry site. And besides this, it's also a factory for the casting. We have a particular method for the casting. It's by using the models for the casting of the bronze. Today, I'm about to show you what is a model for the casting of the bronze. It's made of the mud. And based on that piece of mud, we have made a sculpture. It looks like the head of an animal with the 2 corns and also 2 ears. However, the face looks like a humankind with the nose and brows and eyes. It's very lifelike. It's newly excavated from the nearby site and not yet analyzed by our experts, so we don't know how to call it precisely. Actually, we have 2 separate parts for the casting of the bronze, we have one side this very lifelike figure, and another part is this mud, and then when we put the two sides together, we can have the casting of the bronze. But that is only a simplified version for the casting of the bronze. Inside there are many more details to be told further. In the recent 2 days, we have heard some new discoveries from the Yingshu sites. For example, for another site, we have discovered one white color ceramics from the Shang dynasty. It's very famous for the ceramics, but until now, it's the first time for us to discover a white color, complete shaped ceramics from the Yingshu site dating back to the Shang dynasty. It's 90% complete. And the white color ceramics are believed to be the belongings of the aristocrats, the high-ranked noblemen of the society. And this discovery of the white color ceramics would be a very important reference for the studies of ceramics in total in our country. So we really hope that this World Heritage Site, Yingshu, could continue to bring us new surprises and discoveries. Thank you very much for this introduction about the heavy industry site dating back to Shang dynasty. We still have Mr. Shi Jinsong with us in the studio. Just now, our journalists have sent back this report about the ancient heavy industry site. And by then, the bronzeware from the Shang dynasty are considered as the most advanced bronzeware and heavy industry castings in that period of time. And for the bronzeware from Sanxingdui and from the Yingshu, how would you comment on that? For Yingshu and also Sanxingdui, the bronzewares are totally different. For example, for the bigger size of vessels like the Zun and Lei, the bronzeware from Yingshu are more delicate and exquisite. However, we still have to admit that to make those objects of bronze from Sanxingdui, you also need to acquire a certain level of technologies. For example, the secret tree and also some other technologies. For example, that portrait bronze carrying on top of his head a vase, it's quite challenging in terms of the techniques. And we also should admit that the ancestors have acquired certain technology to put the different pieces of bronze together, the conjuncture measures. What is the biggest difference between Sanxingdui and Panlongcheng and also the Yingshu? The Yingshu and also Panlongcheng, they were quite similar, but they are very different from the Sanxingdui. They have different objects of the worship. For example, whether they will select the facial mask, the secret tree, or the sun-shaped tools and objects, and also the bronze birds, those are the symbols of certain worship culture. And secondly, for the altar and also the vase carried by a portrait, those sacrificial objects, they are also the features unique to the Sanxingdui Ruins. And most of these bronzewares, the objects, they are coming out from these sacrificial pits. But for Yingshu and Panlongcheng, most of the bronzewares are used as weapons or for the daily objects, less in the sacrificial ceremonies. So talking about the differences of the bronzewares from the Sanxingdui and the other two sites, it's not only limited to the scale of the shape or the patterns, but also with their functions and the final use. And for this moment, we have already carried that very big bronze zun to the center of protection for the further restoration. Yes, Chen Yuan. I'm now at the Protection Center at the Sanxingdui Museum. On the ground floor, we have this very big size of laboratory. It looks like the clinic for the healthcare of those objects and artifacts. If you have followed our program of yesterday, you have already noticed the glitters of the gold coming from those facial masks. And today, the highlight of the work is the ivory, the elephant tusk. Several minutes ago, we have received the newly lifted ivory. With the advancement of the technologies, today we have progressed a lot with the repairing and restoration techniques for the elephant tusks. And the restoration work for the ivory used to be a big headache for our archaeologists. And what is your progress today? This is of a length of 1.3 meters. And our colleagues will also run a DNA test on the elephant tusk. And today we have lifted this whole piece of tusk to our laboratory. And we will run also a disinfection of the whole body of this tusk. And we will also detach all the mud from the surface of the tusk. And we also have to pay attention to the hydration. Yes. The first step is the DNA sampling from the tusk. We know with the high-tech DNA testing has been considered a very important tool for our archaeologists. On the other side of our table, our expert is doing the DNA sampling.
So for the environment of the Sanxingdui, actually it is not suitable to preserve some of the organic materials. So for example, for this elephant tusk, the condition is poor. So when we are collecting the samples, we have to collect some of the parts that have been preserved well. And also we have to avoid some of the traces of the burnt, because this will have an effect for our testing. And here we are trying to collect some of the samples for DNA test. But we need to go to the laboratory to extract the DNA, and also it will pose a lot of challenges for us. Yes, it is a very difficult task. So for all of our samples to send to the Anthropology Institute to do a research of the DNA testing. So if we are able to extract the DNA, will it be helpful to better understand the history and the civilization of the ivory as well as the Sanxingdui site? Why we want to study this kind of DNA samples? So actually DNA could solve a lot of problems. For example, the origin of the elephant. So for example, we are able to identify whether this ivory has been imported from outside or these elephants are actually grown locally. And also we can able to understand the migration of the Asian elephant. Because right now we know for the Asian elephants, they actually in the southeast of the world. So we need to understand the evolution and also the migration traces of all of these elephants. Thank you very much for your introduction. So actually we think the extraction of the DNA is very important for us. And right now the team is continue to clean some of the dust and the earth of the elephant tusk. Except for the disinfection, we also need to make sure that there is sufficient moisture on the ivory. And as for the ivory has been buried for over 3,000 years and actually stay in a quite suitable condition after we unearth all of these ivories, after we remove all of the dirt. So there may be some dehydration of these ivories, and then these ivories may broke down into pieces or into powders. So at this point, we have to lock down all of the water inside of the ivory. At the beginning of the excavation, we are expecting that a lot of ivories will be unearthed. So we are working with other institutes so that to make sure that we can put the hydrating towel and tissues to protect all of those ivories, and then we will do the disinfection of the ivories, and then we will put other materials to lock the water inside of the ivory. So here you could see some of the traces of the dirt and trace of burnt, but it is quite thin, so we have to be very careful for the sampling. And after we collect the sample, we have to do the disinfection and also to do a hydrating treatment of the ivory. As we just said, for the extraction of DNA is very important for the elephants and the ivory. And actually for these, ivory has been buried for thousands of years, so it is very difficult for us to trace the history. And if these ivories has been kept for hundreds of years, maybe we are able to find some of the evidence. And if these ivory have been buried for tens of thousands of years and then it become fossils, and inside of these laboratory we also see some of the ivory carving. So what are you looking at? I think it is the broken pieces of the ivory carving, and this is actually a broken piece of the ivory sculpture. It is quite delicate. And actually for the length of these broken piece is only 1.4 centimeter, and we have 9 motifs carved on this ivory piece. We could see some of the patterns of the wings, and also if you look closer you could see a lot of details, even though this ivory carving only have a length of 1.4 centimeter for each one of the wings, and you could see there were many lines crossing carved on this ivory piece. It's very delicate. We could never imagine thousands of years ago they're able to do these kind of artifacts. Now you could see for this line, it is only 50 millimeters. Back in the ancient times, the ancient people do not have microscope and other cutting-edge technologies. It's very difficult to imagine how they're able to make this kind of ivory carving. Right now in pit number 5, we are able to find some of the ivory carvings, and there were many different patterns. We have some hollow design and also some patterns of the clouds and thunder. It's very beautiful for those ivory carving. Thank you very much for your introduction. And by looking at all of those ivory carvings, we may have a better understanding of what is the function of those ivory carving. We also need to study into why this ivory carving could be found in this glittering pit, number 5 pit. And right now they're also extracting the DNA for the elephant tusks. Hopefully in the future we could unveil all of those mysteries. Back to you, Chunyan. Thank you very much for your introduction about the restoration of the relics. And once again, we witness the advancement of our technology. And right now, we are going back to the excavation site, Guanghan. All right. Now we are entering into a Q&A session. We have already collected a lot of questions. There are a lot of comments from our viewers, and now we are able to raise this question to Mr. Chen, who is the leader for the archaeological excavation for pit number 1 and 2 in Sanxingdui site. So here I would like to set up the screen and pose all of those questions. We would like to pick one of the questions, because today we have collected so many questions. Just look at the big screen. We have 4 questions here. So just now we are talking about the ancestor of the hot pot. Maybe we answer the 4th question. So this question is about whether we found the earliest hot pot in Sanxingdui site. Do we have a photo here? So actually in the Sanxingdui site, we have a cooking vessel with wide edge and 3 legs. So this is the cooking vessel with 3 legs. You could see the edge is very wide. And also we have a port inside of this cooking vessel. So I would say we could use this kind of vessel for cooking or brewing. So as see, the edge is very wide. We are able to put some food and vegetables. Of course, we could use this to make a hot pot, but also we could use this kind of cooking vessel to braise meat or cook rice. I think it is one of the earliest cooking vessel in China. Maybe it is one of the origin for the Sichuan hot pot. So maybe we are able to use this to do the hot pot, but maybe back in that time, the ancient people don't know how to eat the hot pots. And if you could see the shape of the cooking vessel, actually, it could also be used as the container because it is quite large in size. It's very convenient because it has 3 legs to support this cooking vessel. So this cooking vessel can actually represent the wisdom of the ancient people. For the high stand plate, it looks like a lamp, but there is a large plate on top of it. So meaning that back in the ancient times, maybe people just sitting on the ground and they could take the food from the plate. And actually, if we look at the Chinese character dou, it also means plate. So all of this design can also show the creativity of the ancient people. We have a great number of the potteries unearthed from the Sanxingdui site. They're also very practical and very beautiful for the appearance. So just now we are talking about the cooking vessel with 3 legs. Probably it would be the origin of hot pot. So that is the live coverage, and tomorrow we will have more new discoveries. Same time tomorrow. All right, welcome back to the Beijing studio. I have a question to Mr. Shi. And you said earlier we found sacrificial pit number 1 and 2, one representing the power of king and the other one representing the power of God. So now we have 6 additional pits. So what are they representing? This is actually a tough question. Earlier I said maybe pit number 1 represents the power of king and the number 2 representing the worship of sun. And right now we have some new discoveries. So maybe we have to review and redefine the nature and the functions of the 8 pits altogether. Maybe the previous explanation works, but still maybe we could add in some of the enrichment of the civilization, so maybe we will overturn some of the previous concepts. So this is actually the charm for the archaeological excavation and also the archaeology. So we think this is a state of art. It is quite open for discussion. We always have the new questions, new problems, and also the mysteries. Thank you very much for joining us for today's special program. 鸭子河, 马木河. The Central Plain actually nurtured over tens of millions of people. A lot of bronze wares and relics has been unearthed from the relic sites. And the Sanxingdui people has demonstrating their progress in the pursuit of the civilization. Because of their contribution, we are able to witness the civilization that existed 3,000 years ago. So we have diverse civilization in the southwestern China, and all of these has formed the Chinese civilization. We would like to thank the excavation in Sanxingdui site, just like one of the archaeologists said. Right now we're at the golden age of the excavation, because right now we are able to unveil the history in China. The excavation is still going on. We are waiting for other treasures to be unearthed from Sanxingdui site. Please stay tuned with us tomorrow, and we will continue to unveil the mystery of Sanxingdui site.